Hello, and welcome to another day of Living with Spina Bifida. Today is Mental Health Monday, and I'm going to be talking to you about nonverbal learning disorders. Now, if you are in the Spina Bifida community for one reason or another, you have most likely heard nonverbal learning disorders or disabilities come up in conversation at one time or another. That is because it is quite common for people with spina bifida to also have nonverbal learning disorders. Because not only do we have physical issues and limitations, we often also have mental issues and limitations. But that doesn't mean that we are limited to life and living to our full potential. That just means that we have to live a little differently than other people do, and that's perfectly fine. Many people think of learning disabilities as issues with verbal skills, such as reading or writing. But what if your child, or if you yourself, has strong verbal skills and a big vocabulary, but doesn't understand when someone is being sarcastic? What if you read at an advanced level, but you can't tell someone the most important part of a story? These are classic signs of nonverbal learning disabilities. Nonverbal learning disabilities are a brain-based condition that affects skills like abstract thought and spatial relationships. While nonverbal learning disabilities can affect your child or you yourself in different ways, it creates an even bigger challenge when it comes to the social life. Many learning and attention issues create social challenges, but these are the main symptoms of nonverbal learning disabilities, and they affect a person's social skills, but not their speech or writing skills. People with nonverbal learning disorders tend to talk a lot, but they don't always necessarily share in a socially appropriate way, or they might not relay the most important information. They often miss social cues, so making and keeping friends is a big challenge. There can also be misunderstandings with teachers, parents, and other adults. Unlike people with language-based learning issues, like dyslexia, people with nonverbal learning disabilities have trouble understanding communication that isn't verbal. That includes body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions. When a classmate or a friend says something in a teasing voice, a child with nonverbal learning disabilities may think they're being serious. They may also laugh at something that is serious if they sense that the person talking is smiling a little bit. Not getting the subtle, unspoken messages people makes it hard to form relationships and fit in with other people. To better understand what nonverbal learning disabilities are, it helps to know more about language-based learning disabilities. People with those issues have trouble with reading, writing, and spoken language. Their speech and language skills tend to be weak. They struggle with accuracy and speed in their work. Some people with nonverbal learning disabilities have good language skills, but they have trouble sorting through information and understanding bigger concepts. They may not have issues with written or spoken language, but they may think in literal terms and miss subtle nonverbal cues. Researchers don't know the exact cause of nonverbal learning disabilities, but they believe it is related to differences in various brain processes located in the left and right regions of the brain. Also, nonverbal learning disabilities is not recognized as a disability covered by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Children with nonverbal learning disability-related symptoms may still be eligible for special education services if they're found to have a specific learning disability that is interfering with the educational process. Nonverbal learning disabilities can make learning difficult, but that doesn't mean a person is not bright. Like most people with any learning disability, the person typically has average or above intelligence. It's also important to know that nonverbal learning disability is not the same as Asperger's or autism, though each can affect social skills and social interaction. It's difficult to know how many people actually have nonverbal learning disabilities. That's because there's no clear definition of what this category of learning disabilities includes. Studies estimate that around 1 in 100 or 1% of people in the United States may have a nonverbal learning disability. It doesn't seem to run in families the same way that attention issues and language-based learning disabilities do. Signs and symptoms of nonverbal learning disabilities can include having trouble recognizing nonverbal cues such as facial expressions or body language, shows poor psychomotor coordination, clumsy, seems to be constantly getting in the way, bumping into people and objects. Using fine motor skills is a challenge, tying shoes, writing, using scissors, needs to verbally label everything that happens to comprehend circumstances, spatial orientation, directional concepts, and coordination. They often get lost or are tardy to school or work. Has difficulty coping with changes in routing and transitions. Has difficulty generalizing previously learned information. Has difficulty following multi-step directions. They make very literal translations, asks too many questions, may be repetitive, and inappropriately interrupt the flow of a lesson, imparts the illusion of competence because of the person's strong verbal skills. Lastly, I will give you some strategies to help your child or yourself if you do have nonverbal learning disabilities. Rehearse getting from place to place. Minimize transitions and give several verbal cues before transition. Avoid assuming the person will automatically generalize instructions or concepts. Verbally point out similarities, differences, and connections. Number and present instructions in sequence. Simplify and break down abstract concepts. Explain metaphors, nuances, and multiple meanings in reading material. Answer the person's questions whenever possible. And let them know a specific number. Like you can say, you will answer 3 questions rather than I will answer a few questions. Give them an actual number. And then you can answer 3 more questions at recess, after school, after the work shift, whenever. Be specific. Allow the person to abstain from participating in activities at signs of overload. Thoroughly prepare the child in advance for field trips or other changes, regardless of how minimal. Implement a modified schedule or creative programming. Never assume the person has an understanding of what you just said because they can parrot back what you just told them. And offer added verbal explanations when the person seems lost or registers confusion. I myself have nonverbal learning disabilities, and it does make things quite difficult, especially when it comes to social interaction with the people I already know, and if I am trying to make new friends and whatnot. Because though I know how to be sarcastic and I know how to kid around and not be so serious myself, I don't always pick up on that when other people are doing it. So in the past, it's gotten a lot better actually than it has before. I have started quite a lot of fights and arguments with people because I read them wrong, I understood what they were saying incorrectly, and it just made a big deal out of something that wasn't actually there. And it definitely made school very difficult because I learned differently than other people did. And teachers don't always know how you need to be taught. They just assume you are a lost cause. I know that it has gotten a lot better since I was in school, but when I was in school, they did have a okay grasp on the idea that I was different and I needed different assistances in certain areas. So I did get through elementary school, middle school, high school at the proper time. I was never held back or anything like that, but it was a constant struggle because of my learning issues, my nonverbal and my verbal issues. So, but here I am as an adult, married, I have a son, I have friends, and I'm doing pretty okay. Yes, life is always going to be a struggle no matter what your issues are, but if you have a proper head on your shoulders and you don't give up and you believe in yourself, you will get through whatever it is that you need to get through.